welcome back to a new Scary Story Sunday episode. I apologize for the long wait on this episode. College has been hectic, to say the least. And as the season of spooks and scares reaches its height and the search for clowns continue, you may want to take an approach of caution after hearing this tale by Reddit user Gothic Lovesick. I tell you this because someone was outside my door. This happened to me during the summer of 2004. I was 19 and had taken a job as a camp counselor in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The camp itself was being held in one of my dorm halls of Gettysburg College that was vacant for the summer. Myself and a handful of counselors were hired to keep a large group of teens between the ages of 13 to 18 entertained for 4 weeks, starting the last week of June. The drive from New York City was long and exhausting, but arriving at my college, I felt my energy return from excitement. It would also be my first experience living away from my own tight-knit family, and I was eager to see if I could hack it living an independent adult. I felt lucky to have the job. It would be providing room and board as well as a decent paycheck, and allowed me a lot of freedom with the safety net of having a place to eat and sleep. After arriving at the building, I met the other counselors and we were debriefed over the course of the day on what our personal tasks would be. How to handle emergencies, schedules, days off, the usual. The first floor of the premises and several rooms in a few other buildings would be available for activities for the students as well as the meal hall for each meal. The campus was mostly empty, but there were still some students present who were staying on campus for the summer or taking summer classes. When night fell, we were instructed that the basement level as well as the second level would be the girls' dorms, and a third floor for boys. I was told to pick a room, so considering the weight of my luggage and the brutal heat of summer, I chose the dorm in the basement. Initially, it was a good choice. My room was a double wide, but I was a little creeped out by the window situation. My window sat in a deep hole that was covered partially by bramble and condensation most of the time, and only let in a dim cold light despite the summer heat. I unpacked and settled into the room. The other counselors invited me out to the bar, but I declined as I was underage and not really interested in drinking while technically on the job. I settled in for the night, reading Epstein's Castle again, an old novel from my Gothic literature class in Hunter College that I fell in love with. Around midnight, I caught the sight something from the corner of my eye. It was coming from beneath my door. The entire basement was tiled in very white, shiny tile. The door was cut a little short so it was possible to see shadows and reflections of the tile from under the door. What I saw was not quite a shadow, but more of a reflection. It was two pale bare feet and clad in some kind of light-colored material. I cocked my head and my interest peaked, but just assumed it was one of the girls who was forming on my level and had returned from the bar and had maybe stopped to read my name tag on the door. I didn't think too much on it and went to sleep. The next day, I asked around the dorm, but neither of the girls was back from the bar when the incident happened. I found this odd. At the end of each side of the hall were heavy metal fire doors. Anyone who came into the basement level would be heard because of these heavy slamming doors. Yet I had heard nothing. Not giving it any thought, I went on with my day. The students arrived, we had lots of fun, and soon night fell again. It was after 10 p.m., which was lights out, and I was in my room on my bed again, back to my book, when I saw a reflection from under my door. It was the same pale feet and light-colored clothing, shifting slightly under my door as if waiting for me to answer it. So, overzealous with my job and totally blanking out on what had happened the other night, I leapt out of the bed to catch the girl, who was out of her room at the lights out. I swung the door open and said aloud, "Gotcha!" But there was no one there. The hall was empty. I found it so odd, so I checked the conference room, the bathroom, and finally, out of desperation, every girl's room. Everyone was where they should be. An unsettled feeling came over me, and I scurried back to my room and tucked a towel under the crack of my door. I slept with it like that every night. I noticed that usually after midnight, things began to feel creepy, as if someone was watching me. My window to my dorm terrified me, as if someone or something was watching me out there from the darkness. I used to try to fall asleep before midnight so I wouldn't have to feel creeped out. One particular night, I had stayed up until 1 a.m. I was in my bed with my hoodie on because it was just too much air conditioning. The room was freezing. I was reading as usual when I heard my phone chime. The chime it made was to tell me it was charging, but I had plugged it in several hours ago. I ignored it when it chimed again. Then, again, after another moment, I got up and removed it from the plug, and it chimed again. I turned my phone off and stuffed it under my pillow. It chimed again. I pulled up my hoodie and said, "Leave me alone." Laying down, I turned on my side to try and force myself asleep. I was pretty freaked out by sleeping alone in my big room, so I would keep both closet lights on and doors open. Laying there, I began to finally relax when I felt a cold breath against my ear. I flipped onto my back, alarmed. "Stop it!" I yelled. As I finally got myself to calm down, I rested my hands over my head, and just as I was about to fall asleep, I felt something icy cold grip my exposed wrist. I leapt out of bed and walked the first floor until about 2 a.m. I was tired enough to fall asleep, and the terror of the episode had finally passed. As the summer waned on, I became known as the counselor who loved to tell spooky stories, since I had a lot of supernatural things occur during my lifetime. In fact, it had become the reason for coming to Gettysburg in the first place. I had a choice when I took the job, either the all-girls camp location upstate or the co-ed location at Gettysburg. I am a huge Civil War buff, and I also heard that Gettysburg was a hotspot for paranormal activity, so I had made this location my choice. We explored the campus more thoroughly, and was told by some people living on campus that the campus was indeed haunted. One of the buildings, the former location of a Civil War hospital, as well as a church in town. The legend was that a student had gone down to the basement level of the building on campus when the elevator doors opened. The room was its former hospital, and a surgeon amputating a leg looked at the student and beckoned them to come help. As expected, the student shut the doors and went up to another level to escape the sight. July had come and the battlefield days were approaching. The energy could be felt all around, like the air was thick with static electricity. The night before the anniversary of the first battle, I had a strange dream. I dreamed I was standing in a dry ravine, and it was twilight. A tiger stalked the ravine and jumped on me, leaving 3 claw marks across my forearm. I woke up. It was my day off, so I forgot about the dream and went for a walk with a friend to explore the area. We took a walk that led us into a dried out ravine. It was then that the dream came back to me, and I told her about it. She agreed it was odd, but then I asked, what do tigers have anything to do with it? As I walked back to the dorms, the moon rose at a gorgeous red color. I found it striking, and the energy in the air intensified. The night after lights out, I was back in my nightly habit of Doritos and gothic horror when I heard frantic pounding on my door. One of my students was looking at me desperately. I asked her what was the matter. She exclaimed, "It's Jessica. She won't wake up and she's scratching herself." I risked a laugh. "Are you guys trying to scare me?" She shook her head, still in disbelief. I followed her into the room. In the room, one of our students, Jessica, a witch by her own definition and goth, was rolling back and forth, raking her long black fingernails down her chest and arms. It seemed like a pretty good act, so I laughed and said, "Alright, Jess, you don't fool me." But then I saw the red slashes starting to drop blood, so I tried to pull her hands away. I have to say, at the time I was incredibly strong for my petite size, considering that I'm 5'1". I'd trained in the Marines before deciding not to enlist, but still. She tossed me off like a rag doll and slashed her nails at me. I felt a sting and immediately grabbed a towel from the side of the bed and tried to wrap it around her, but it was useless. She was so powerful and continued to attack herself. I ran upstairs to alert the other counselors, and 2 women and a man came down. All 4 of us struggled to restrain her. I was holding down an ankle, and so was another girl who I knew was a Christian. I saw her lips moving silently and asked her to pray with me. As soon as we started praying, the girl immediately stopped and relaxed, waking up. We took her to the nurse's station, and I clipped her fingernails. We called her mother. After Jessica went back to bed, I looked down at my stinging arm and saw 3 long claw marks traced across my forearm. "Tigers," I muttered, and went back to bed. The end of the summer approached, and soon the last day came. I was sitting in the meal hall when some of my male students sat around me. They were eager to tell me that one of their own ghost stories instead of always asking to hear mine, and I paled as they recounted how every night they would see someone standing behind their door. The reflection of their feet off the shiny tile and red glowing eyes in the tree outside the window. I've been in many places over the years known for paranormal activity, but never a place like Gettysburg. I hope you enjoyed that tale. This was a rather short one compared to the last one, but nevertheless, I hope to see you next time. And be safe out in the darkness, for you never know. There might be something right behind you.